What is going on, guys? Welcome back to your Lake Fork Guide. It's almost the end of the year. It's Christmas time. I'm sitting here in my garage trying to organize this mess of tackle. As I think back on my years of fishing guide, I think about the one question that I get asked on this channel more than any other that I've never fully answered. And that is because it's such an important question to me, such an important topic, that I want to take the time to answer it right. Today, we're going to answer that question. Today, I'm going to tell you guys how to become a Lake Fork fishing guide. First of all, Merry Christmas to you and yours. Such a special time of year. Man, the special time of year for me is all year, guys. I got to tell you, I'm living my absolute dream life. As I sit in here today, I just came in, just backed the boat in to the garage, just came off the water, spent some time today with, they're all my favorite customers, but one of the guys I spend a lot of time on the water, a guy that fishes with me repetitively, return customer, Mr. Justin Jones. Can't thank him enough. Had a great time today. We fished right up until dark. It gets dark early this time of year. We fished right up until dark. Watched the sunset behind the old East Texas oak trees and even caught a couple right at the end. Had a fun day today. It's been really cold trending water. Not a great bite. Caught about 10 or 12 fish today. Pretty good for the conditions we've been dealing with. And just had an absolute blast with Justin, as I always do. And I'm blessed and fortunate at this point in my guiding career to have so many people like that. I would say at this point, the majority of the people that I take out have fished with me before. That is a blessing in and of itself, to show up at the ramp most days and know the guy that's getting in your boat. You know his personality. You know what he likes to do. You know how he likes to fish. That's a huge deal. But I've been asked a lot, how do you become a guide? Specifically, how do you become a Lake Fork guide? That is a multifaceted question. There is so much to it. It's a simple thing, and I think the answer that you would get from most people is, man, you just got to fit. First thing you got to do, you got to fish a lot. And there's truth to that, but there's so much more to it than that. I think the biggest misconception, even amongst fishing guides themselves, and let me say this before we go any further. Everything that I say here today is merely my personal opinion. There are many other fishing guides that have been doing this for a lot longer than me that would probably have different opinions. But for me, I came in, I was able to get a foothold early and establish a very successful business using modern marketing tactics through social media. So I'm going to talk to you guys about a lot of that today. But there's so much more to being a fishing guide than just the fishing part. I do think that the biggest misconception, even amongst the experienced fishing guides, is when you're a fishing guide, you are not paid to catch fish. You're not even paid to help others catch fish, to make other people catch fish to get in your boat. That's not what you're paid for. You're paid to create an experience and make people want to go fishing with you. There are all kinds of ways to do this. Slade Doherty is considered a fishing guide at Lake Fork. They don't even hardly fish when Slade, I don't even know if they do fish at all when they go in Slade's boat. Slade is an electronics expert. He tunes people's electronics for them. He's the best in the business with Humminbird electronics. Make no mistake about it, anybody else out there is second to Slade Doherty when it comes to Humminbird electronics. He's pretty good with Lowrance as well. But Slade is an expert at tuning electronics in. So your whole objective when you start a fishing guide business, you need to understand, your objective is to make people want to go fishing with you. Period. That can be like Josh Jones through the amazing giant fish that you catch, and like some Lake Fork guides through the amazing giant fish that you catch. That can be like most of the guides and be an experience of you as the customer are going to get to catch these fish. This is the quality fish that we can put you on for the customer himself. Or you can be like a lot of guys and add a little bit of everything. And I think the best ones do a little bit of everything. They offer, A, a fun experience. They offer entertainment. A little bit in the way, you got to be a little bit of a comedian. You got to be able to get along with a lot of people. But you've got to offer a very exciting, very fun experience that people are going to spend their hard-earned money. Guys, these guide trips these days are running up $400, $500, $600. Hey, that's a pretty good chunk of change to go fishing for a day. You better offer some value to the customer. And that doesn't just mean catching fish. Education is a great way to get people to want to come back and see you. If you go out and have a tough day, the fish is not always going to work. Every fishing guide out there has good days and bad days. 100% guaranteed. That is a reality. I don't care how good they act like they are. I don't care how good their Facebook pictures are. Every guide out there zeroes with a customer once in a while. It happens. It does happen to every single one of them. But if you can create an experience even on the tough days, okay, where guys still want to come back, maybe that's through you taught them how to fish a new technique. You taught them a better way to fish a technique that they already knew how to fish, and then they take that on their next trip in their own boat or in their buddy's boat, and hey, they kick their buddy's butt or they catch a new personal best or just have a good day through something you taught them. That guy's going to remember that you taught him that, and he's going to want to come back and see you to see what else you can teach him. That's part of it. Some guys are just, man, these guys that have the money to spend on a guide trip, they're looking to relax and not think about work for a day. They work high-pressure jobs, some of them. So when they come out there, if you can cut up with them and get a rapport with them and make them laugh throughout the day, sometimes that's enough to bring them back. And of course, you want to try and create as good of a fishing experience as you can as well. That's got to be there. You got to have some fishing acumen. So for those that would tell you, you just got to fish a lot. Well, you do got to fish a lot, but you don't just got to fish a lot. You got to prepare yourself for what it is that you have to offer the customer. That's the first thing you need to know, in my opinion. Let's talk about the fishing a lot. When we say fishing a lot, I don't think people understand. When you start a guide business and you get it up and running and you go full time, if you're doing it right and you're going to be successful, you will fish 300 days a year. Now, you're only going to run about 200 to 20 guide trips a year, but you're going to fish 300 days a year if you want to do it right. What does that tell you? You're going to spend a lot of time by yourself in that boat, grinding, learning, finding new water, finding a new bite, doing your homework. It's a lot of lonely hours. When you do something 300 days a year, you better love it. This is not a normal job. This is not a job that you can go, man, I like doing this. This is an enjoyable job. I really would enjoy doing that for work. That ain't it. You better be obsessed with it. You better think about it. Every time you go to bed at night, if you're working a regular job right now and not getting to fish Monday through Friday, if you're not thinking about bass fishing every night when you go to sleep and every time you drive to and from work, guiding's not for you. You will run something you thoroughly enjoy. You may kind of love bass fishing. You may thoroughly, extremely enjoy bass fishing. If you go into a full-time guide business as a guy that enjoys bass fishing, you will end up hating bass fishing. You need to be totally consumed and obsessed with figuring out how to catch more fish. You also have to be a people person. If you're somebody that likes to be off to yourself and doesn't really like to talk to people, like if you get in a public setting and you're the dude that's back in the corner not really chatting everybody up, it's probably not your deal. Probably not your deal. You got to be a guy that wants to talk to people. You got to be a guy that gets excited about meeting new people. You're going to meet new people every day, and you got to make them your best friend for that day. You got to sit in a confined 20-foot space for 8 to 9 hours with those people. You better figure out how to get along with them pretty quick, or it's going to create some bad experiences for you and the customer. But the obsession with fishing does need to be there. It absolutely needs to be a part of what this is all about for you. It's got to be the core, the base of it to me, and then you have to understand that now you're not just fishing, you're offering a service. Okay, and that's where all the other stuff that we've been talking about comes in. That it's once you've got the fishing obsession, you've spent the time, you feel like you've got the lake figured out, you know the whole lake top to bottom. If you're going to guide on a lake, you better know the whole lake top to bottom, guys. Like, don't be one of those guys, and there's some that try it, to be like, well, I've never been to Palestine, but I'll run you a guide trip down there on Palestine. That is a terrible, terrible idea. That's a terrible thing to do to a customer. Okay? I've run 1 or 2 guide trips on Lake of the Pines, and I only did it this year after I'd fished it regularly leading up to it. And I've been fishing Lake of the Pines for years, but not consistently enough to feel like I knew the whole lake. Until I got to a point where I felt like I knew the whole lake, then I ran a couple guide trips when I was on a good bite out there. But that's it. Don't just hop around from lake to lake on lakes you don't know. And before you start a guide business on Lake Fork, you better have been to every cove on that thing. It's not that big of a lake. You need to know the whole thing top to bottom. Number one, you need to know how to navigate it safely. You need to know how to get your customers back to the dock safely. Thank God I've never had an incident with a customer, but it can happen. If you cannot get your customer to and from safely, you have no business being a guide. And accidents happen on the water. Things are going to happen from time to time. I remember back in the day, Jay Kendrick had an old man fall out of the boat, hit his head on a stump. Man, that guy had to get in a helicopter to go to the hospital. Like, you need to be experienced on the water. You need to be experienced on the lake and know how to keep your people safe to the best of your ability, because water can be very, very dangerous. You need to have experienced the lake when a storm blows up and you got to run in 5 footers. If you've never experienced that, you're not going to know how to handle that, and you don't want to take a chance with somebody else's well-being the first time you're dealing with something like that, because it can kill you. It literally can kill you. So you need to have your time on the water before you become a fishing guide. Go over one more thing that you need to know before we get into how to get your business started on this. Something you have to think about. When you become a fishing guide at any lake, but especially Lake Fork, where there's so many fishing guides and there's so many guys that have done it so well for so many years, you don't just represent yourself. You represent the entire guide community. Now, there's probably some guides watching this that are thinking, well, he's the worst one to tell you that because they just don't like me because of the way my business choices. But when it comes down to it, when I have customers in my boat, I have always been respectful with my customers. I have always treated them like it was their day, their special day, and I'm trying to do the best I can to give them the experience they want. You have to remember, if you're having a bad day at home, you're having your dog died, or whatever's going on in your personal life, that has to be left behind. It's no different than any other job. Yes, it is a wide open free market. Nobody is in charge of you when you're a fishing guide. There's not even hardly any regulations. You go buy a fishing license from Academy or wherever, Lake Fork Marina for that matter. It's where I get mine every year. And you're a fishing guide. You can legally be a fishing guide. But you owe it to all of the other guys that are running their business out of that fishery to understand that you represent the entire community of guides. So you need to run quality equipment. You need to dress appropriately. You need to be polite. You need to mind your manners. You need to be polite on the water with other boaters. Be better than them. Just because they cut you off doesn't mean you need to go get in a yelling match with them. You got to be the bigger man and move on and conduct yourself as a professional. Because when that customer leaves that day, if you acted a fool and he has a bad experience, that doesn't just affect you. That affects every other fishing guide on that lake, because that customer's not coming back to that lake. A lot of times that customer's not just writing you off, he's writing the whole Lake Fork experience off. And that is the last thing that you want to do for yourself or any of the others involved. Represent the brand of Lake Fork at all times if you're going to be a Lake Fork fishing guide. Self-admittedly, I have not always done the best of that at all times. One thing that's going to happen, if you start a guide business and you become successful, in the beginning, you are going to get a lot of pushback, very significant pushback. You don't believe me? Ask Jonathan Bowling. You come in here, you start running a lot of trips, they start seeing you leave the ramp every day with customers, and you're running trips, and on the day they don't have trips, it's going to create some jealousy, some bitterness, and people are going to treat you like crap. This is another situation where you're going to have to be the bigger man. You're going to have to be professional and understand that if they're talking behind your back, they're behind you for a reason. Leave them there. That's where they belong. If people are talking behind your back, they are behind you. Leave them where they belong. I said it twice because it's so important. It's something that I feel like I did a phenomenal job of in the first couple, 2 or 3 years that I was out there. And then the last couple of years, I've forgotten that. As I got my business established, maybe a little arrogance crept into my system, a little more comfort in my business, like I had enough business, it didn't matter if I lost one or two. Stuff like that maybe got into my mentality, and when guys have fired at me, I've fired back. But if you're one of the more successful guys on the lake, most of them are going to hate you. And I've never seen a community quite like Lake Fork when it comes to the drama. I've been around other lakes plenty. I know guides on other lakes. I've got buddies that are guides on other lakes. I've never heard of anything, and everybody in the industry knows it. There's nothing like Lake Fork when it comes to the drama that goes on between guides. The reason that is, it's a small lake, and we got more guides than all the other big lakes got. It's just crowded. There's a lot of business that comes through here because of our proximity to Dallas and the reputation of the lake. We get a ton of business. It allows and supports a big guide community, bigger than anywhere else in largemouth bass fishing. But that being said, it comes with that added sticking point of there's going to be some drama. So just know going into it that if you're successful, you're going to get that. And when you start getting that, don't be upset by it. Understand what it is. They're behind you for a reason. Leave them there. And also feel honored. Feel a little bit proud of yourself. Because if you're doing enough to get their attention, you're doing something right. That being said, let's move on into how to start your business, how to grow your business. A guide business is just that. It's a business. And in every single business on earth, you have to sell. To sell a guide business, you have the same problem that you have in every other business, regardless of how good or bad your product may be. It's only going to perform as good as it is if everybody knows about it. This is where the key component comes into any business, regardless of what it is. Whatever your product is, you have to have consumer awareness. You have to grow awareness. You have to get reach. You have to get eyeballs. That is marketing. That is branding. That is not sales. Sales is a different thing. Sales is, I caught this 10-pounder. You should book a trip with me. Let's close this sale right now. That's sales. Don't fall victim to being a salesman. I see so many guides on Lake Fork that don't understand the finer aspects of business. And they are salesmen. And they're always trying to prove how good they are and close a sale. If you will market yourself and brand yourself, it will create infinitely times more bigger awareness of you. Then you don't have to sell nothing. The sales will come to you. Creating brand awareness, creating product awareness is the number one thing that you need to understand if you want to start a business. And in today's times, that is primarily done through social media. What you need to do is you need to spend time on social media. You need to search bass fishing. You need to search Lake Fork bass fishing. You need to find out what type of content is working best in the fishing, bass fishing, and Lake Fork world. All three different worlds on each platform. It's going to be different. What works on Facebook is going to be different than what works on YouTube. And what works on YouTube is going to be different than what works on Instagram and TikTok. It's all going to be a little different. So you need to do your homework and your research and find out what types of content are working in bass fishing on these platforms. What types of content are working for Lake Fork? What am I seeing? What's popping up? What is trending? What's getting the most views? Once you've done that, now you can develop a plan for yourself to go make content that will work. If you do this, guys, I assure you, you will be tenfold ahead of the game. And if you go all in on this, it will take, if you can fish a little bit, it will take you 6 months to a year to be one of the busiest guys on the lake. It's that simple. There's a ton of phenomenal fishermen. There's a ton of very good professional fishermen making their living guiding on Lake Fork. They are professionals in every aspect. They are not very good business managers, most of them, in my opinion. I'm kind of glad. It made my life a lot easier Because if all those guys were maximizing their business potential and really getting after it, it would be hard to get noticed in that crowd. But because they're not, it leaves an opening, and there's an opening for you if you want to do it. But you have to put the time in, the research in, and you got to put the time in to make and create that content. Don't tell me you don't have time. I did it while I was working a 60-hour-a-week salaried sales management job in sales and distribution. And I made content every week. And I researched what was working on what platforms. And I never failed. I always made time. I gave up guide trips to make content because it would make it better in the end for me. I knew it would grow my business bigger in the end for me. When I started guiding, I was guiding part-time. I was still working that 60-hour-a-week job. I only had 2 days a week that I knew I could guide. That was Saturday and Sunday. I would give up one of those. 50% of my revenue in my side hustle. I gave up 50% of my revenue in my side hustle in order to grow it bigger. Once I went full-time, I still kept 1 day a week off the books so that I could go film and get all the content I needed, and then I could edit every evening throughout the week and make content. I would make multiple pieces of content out of 1 day on the water. Instructional content, on the water content. Then we did live. We started doing live streams. We just started we came up with creative ways to make more content using our one filming day a week. And it would cost me $500 every time I did it. That's $500 out of my pocket that I could have booked. That was a sacrifice I made to build a bigger business. It pays off. The branding, the awareness, the reach, the eyeballs on you are worth more money than I could ever explain to you. Because of that, I became the only guy that I know of on Lake Fork, the only guide that I know of on Lake Fork, to not only get free tackle from sponsors, but to actually get checks from sponsors. I get paid to fish people's tackle because of the brand awareness and eyeballs that I have gotten built up on my social media platforms. Guys, that's invaluable. When you become a fishing guide, man, you go through equipment like crazy. You go through baits, you hang them up, you break them off, you go, man, I can't tell you how many jigs I go through a year, how many crankbaits I go through a year. Now I don't have to pay for any of those. I get those from my sponsors, and then on top of that, they're giving me some money on the side. All the reels in the boat, I haven't paid for any of them. All the rods in the boat, I haven't paid for any of them. It's unbelievably important to get your social media awareness out there. Not only is it going to fill your guidebooks, but it's going to make your business infinitely more profitable than it would be if you didn't go all in on the social media content. So yeah, I gave up $500 a week for a long time, but look at what it does now. The thousands and thousands of dollars in fishing equipment that it has earned me, that I didn't have to put on my bottom line on my expenditure sheet at the end of the year. It pays for itself and then some. Not to mention, my guidebooks are completely full. I've managed to run a guide business where over the last 2 or 3 years, I think it's the last 2 years, I know for sure it's 2 years, it may be 3 years, there has not been a single day of the entire calendar year that I wanted to run a guide trip that I did not. If I didn't run a guide trip, it's because I was doing other business obligations, filming content, whatever it may be. I had something scheduled off for my kids, or scheduled off for whatever reason, or bad weather rolled in and we had to reschedule the trip. If I wanted to be on the water guiding, I was guiding every single day the last couple of years. My guidebooks are completely full. You'd be hard pressed to find another man that could say that. The only other thing I can tell you when it comes to social media content to help you guys out, well, 2 things. First one is bring value to the consumer, which is the viewer on social media content. Bring something of value. Comedy is value. You can bring comedy if you're a funny guy. Bring some comedy to the platform, to the content. Education in the way of fishing, which is what we focused on here. You know, we set out to get noticed on social media. You got to try to do something a little bit different to stand out. Well, our deal was in the beginning, we were going to give more in-depth, detailed information about fishing than anybody ever has. Always before, in my viewing history leading up to that, before I started, you would watch a fishing video and it'd tell you to throw it's winter time, so we'll talk about jig fishing. Yeah, man, throw a 1/2 ounce black and blue jig, get around a creek bend, use a 7.5 foot heavy rod and use 20 pound line. And that's kind of what it told you. But we went a lot more in depth. We went listen, get on that creek bend, position your boat on the inside of the bend. The outside bend has a much steeper drop off. Try to get your jig next to the trees, creep it through the roots. Let the jig, every time you pop a jig, when it pops off one root, point your rod down, let it fall down in those roots. That's where you're going to get your bite. Every little detail of that, how to set the hook, how to fight the fish, we've gone over and gone into depth on all these details. And what I really think is awesome now is when I started doing this, other than Scott Martin, there really wasn't any tour level guys doing this type of content. And Scott Martin wasn't given the detailed information. I don't know that Scott Martin still does probably do that. I don't know if he does or not. But we were the only ones given that detailed information. And now you see guys like Edwin Evers. You see guys like Wheeler. You see guys like Dudley. You see, I mean, on and on and on. We go down the list. They're all making social media content. And a lot of them have followed our model and done instructional stuff where they go much more in depth than they used to. And that makes the entire fishing community better. See, what it does is it brings value to the viewer. It brings a greater value than we used to bring to the viewer. And it's better for the entire world of fishing. We can all become better fishermen through consuming content like that. I consume those guys' content to give me tips. And I'm sure somewhere along the way, some of them may have even picked up something from us at some point. Just because, man, we all learn from each other in the sport. Most of the things that you've learned about bass fishing, you learned from somebody telling you about it. Whether it was on TV, whether it was in person in the boat, whatever. Almost everything that you learn in bass fishing, you learn from somebody telling you. And so that's how we brought value to the customer. That doesn't mean that's how you necessarily need to bring value to the customer, but you need to bring value to your viewers or they're not going to keep watching. And the last thing I'll tell you about making content, I learned this from Gary Vaynerchuk. Document, don't create. Don't worry about how good or bad your editing skills are. Don't worry about how good or bad your cameras are. Use your phone, use a GoPro, whatever you got to do. Putting the content out there, good or bad, and getting views is always better than not putting the content out there. I will take a lot. From a business perspective, I would rather have a ton of mediocre content than one piece of really good content. Because that one piece is only going to live for so long. But if you're constantly putting content out there, it's always living. Man, you always got something out there. You always have the chance to get a new set of eyeballs. You're constantly growing your base. You have to put the content out there. Just film what you do. Document what you do. Put it out there. And if you're good enough, you're going to succeed. It's the beautiful, beautiful part about social media these days. You don't need anybody's permission. Whatever it is, you can put it out there, and if you're good enough, people are going to find you, and it's up to you to get it, find ways to get it in front of people's eyeballs. And if you're good, it's going to grow. That's just kind of the way it works. Of course, you can use the tips and advice that we've given you today to try and get more of those people to see it. And if they see it and you're good, they're going to keep coming back, and it's going to work out for you. I can assure you of that. Well, guys, if any of y'all are thinking of trying to become a fishing guy, I know it's probably only a few of y'all that are watching this, but if any of y'all have been trying to think about how do I become a fishing guy, I sincerely hope that this video helps you. And hey, maybe there's something you can take from this to apply to any business that you're in, because there are things. It's all about getting people aware. There are things in this video that are just general business advice. Like, it's all about getting product awareness. You got to get the customer aware that your product exists. If you don't, it doesn't matter how good your product is. So hopefully this helps you guys out, and man, hopefully it entertained y'all some and was informative. But it's Christmas time, and as I sit here at Christmas time and I look back and I think about everything that I have in my life, all the just unbelievable blessings that I have, I'm so fortunate to get to do what I do. And I firmly believe that the reason that we were successful was because the foundation of our business was built on helping others. And that's something that God calls us all to do. Let's not forget what Christmas is about. Christmas is about the time when our Creator sent His only Son to save us, to sacrifice His own life of His only Son just to save us because we're so messed up. And one of the things that God, if you read the whole Bible, to me, one of the big things that comes out of it is to love God and love others, and serve God and serve others above yourself. And I feel like one of the reasons that we've been able to be successful at Your Lake Fork Guide is because from day one, when we started doing this, we were always about helping others for free and not asking anything in return. Just like this video, I'm trying to help somebody achieve their dream and become a fishing guide, and I don't want anything in return for that. And I think us doing things in that way has allowed us to succeed, because that's the way it's supposed to be done. That's what the Bible tells us to do. And I don't get very many things right, and I get a lot of things as wrong as you could possibly get them. But I thank God every day that I got that one right. And I built this business based on a godly principle of serving others above ourselves. So keep that in mind as you build your business. Hopefully all this will help you be successful, man. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for everything. It's only because of you guys consuming the content, watching the videos, that I'm even able to attempt to live this dream. So I thank you more than I ever probably could. And other than that, I will just say Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. We got more content coming, probably some later this week, definitely some next week. We're coming up with some ideas of how to maybe do things a little different, a little better, and give you guys even more help in 2022. And we'll keep working on that, and we'll see you guys next time right here on Your Lake Fork Guide.